Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to an unusual day for our fiqh hour. Normally our fiqh hour is on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Today it is on Tuesday at 6 p.m. and that's not the reason specifically of why the change is, not to do with the Gregorian calendar as such, but rather it is to do with the lunar calendar. Reason being is, now it is the 29th of Sha'ban. It was the 28th of Sha'ban before Maghrib, which means that tomorrow, inshallah, will be after Maghrib, either the 30th of Sha'ban or will be the 1st of Ramadan. Okay, so therefore, I will be preoccupied, busy with moon sighting responsibilities. So what I will be doing is I will be letting this run live. I'll try to answer any queries which come up, but I will primarily be on a call with the ulama who are gathered together, looking at any evidence which is coming in. So you can get a sneak preview. You can kind of be a fly on the wall and listen to and hear what is being discussed, so that you can see the transparency with what we operate. That's the reason why today we have fiqh hour. Tomorrow we'll have that. For some people, obviously, those that have gone with Saudi Arabia, you will have already heard or read that there has been an announcement made, and that announcement obviously has meant that for you, based on the Saudi data, you have gone ahead. But just to bear in mind, and this is one of the reasons why this whole started for me to look at moon sighting. I just had a conversation with a Mufti Sahib, senior Mufti Sahib here in Bradford as well, literally before I came on air. And this journey started with me going back nearly 20 odd years, but it was about 10 or so years ago, maybe 12 years ago now, where it just got too much for me and I couldn't carry on going by these declarations. And today's declaration is another miracle, because if you look at the al-Qura calendar, then the 1st of Ramadan is on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. This al-Qura calendar was written, many years ago, many decades ago, and it acts primarily as a civil calendar. However, also, unfortunately, it gets used for religious occasions as well, because it would bring a disruption to civil duties and civil operations if the statement of Ramadan starting a day later than what was already written in the al-Qura calendar. That would cause problems, because you can imagine, running a country runs on a timetable. So this al-Qura calendar primarily existed for civil purposes, but unfortunately now it kind of dictates, whether consciously or subconsciously, also the religious calendar, which supposedly is going by sighting for especially the months of Ramadan and Shawwal. But just for your benefit, in Tumer, where supposedly the Hilal was sighted, the moon will be born at 15:01 local time, which is 12:01 our time, because there's about 3 hours difference between us. On Tuesday, the 17th of February, which was today, sunset in Tumer on Tuesday, the 17th of February, is at 17:51. Okay, so the moon is born at 15:01 local time. The sun sets at 17:51 and the moon sets at 17:52. Okay, so the moon will be on the horizon for only 1 minute. 1 minute later, the moon will be less than 3 hours old. So the key thing to bear in mind, that this claim that has been made, the claim of this sighting which has been made on a 1 minute visibility of the moon on the horizon, and it is only a 2 hour and 50 minutes old moon. Now, I'm not going to go anything beyond that, because today is fiqh hour and I'm going to discuss particularly the masail that come in. But for those of us who are still unsure as to the soundness or otherwise, then just that evidence alone, and also bear in mind that there was an eclipse which took place today as well. Not necessarily over all the world, it wasn't a global sort of eclipse, but the fact is that you can see how close we got the celestial bodies all lined up against each other, because there has to be a movement in order to see the hilal, because it is the light from the sun shining on the hilal that becomes visible. But we're really claiming here that a 1 minute hilal that was on the horizon, only a 3-hour-old moon, was visible, seen within that 1 minute, and that declaration was made. Okay, that's what we're up against. And unfortunately, this has happened time and time again. Of course, it's convenient. I was just, again, speaking to the Mufti earlier. I said it's convenience because people find out at 3-4 o'clock, which is very convenient. So masajids can prepare the Taraweeh. And when it is Eid, then families can start preparing. Women can start getting dressed up. Whoever does the cooking can start preparing the cooking. So it's very convenient. But our religion is not necessarily always about convenience. It's about doing what's right. And when it is an act of worship, when it is an act of ibadah, like such a serious act of ibadah, which is fasting, and then obviously the association of Taraweeh and the association of Sadaqatul Fitr and the association of Eid, and all these come inclined, we have to be extra careful and extra cautious. As another point that I made is that, many of us come from the Indian subcontinent, or not directly, but maybe our parents or grandparents have come from the Indian subcontinent. But if you ask them, the original migrants, or if you reach out to your extended families in these countries, you'll find out that Pakistan goes by sighting in Pakistan, India goes by sighting in India, and Bangladesh goes by sighting in Bangladesh. None of them rely on sighting from Saudi. So unfortunately, we are where we are. It is what it is. But I wanted to mention that because I won't get a chance to mention that tomorrow when we have our Ramadan potential moon sighting. Well, potential hilal for tomorrow, because tomorrow is now the 29th of Sha'ban for those of us in the UK. Then tomorrow evening will either be the 30th of Sha'ban if we do full 30 days, or it will be the 1st of Ramadan. So we will have our people going out across the UK after Maghrib tomorrow, inshallah, to see if they can sight the hilal. In the absence of them sighting it, we will then wait on the nearest Muslim country to us in the UK in order to get news from them. And then a declaration will be made. If both come back negative, meaning we get no witness statements coming from the UK, we get no khabar from the UK, and we get no positive affirmation statement from Morocco, then we will do 30 days and Ramadan will start on Friday. If, on the other hand, we get either a witness statement coming from the UK, or we get statements coming from our nearest Muslim country, then we will make declaration, inshallah, and then Ramadan will start tomorrow evening, and the first Tarawih will be tomorrow evening. If you missed some of this, then just watch it on play afterwards, because you might be thinking, hey, I'm sure they made announcements in Saudi that it started, but you'll catch that up. Khair. That said, let's go on to the Q&A. Okay, so let's start with the gents group. Forwarded as received. Question regarding using AI and training AI as a job. My first question is about using AI. If I am using AI to make images of products and design non-living things, would this be permissible? Yes, of course, that would be permissible. There's nothing making it impermissible. If I'm using AI to make images of people and or animals using the products I design, is this permissible? The coding, obviously, when a person's doing this, they will be looking at primarily coding, and primarily they will be looking at engaging with the AI and perfecting and correcting the AI. So therefore, there is no direct involvement in imagery. However, if one feels that there's a direct involvement in imagery, then obviously they should refrain from that. For example, if I design a medical or sports product and I have AI make an image of someone using it, would that be permissible? In certain occasions, as we know, even if we take a strong position, if we take even a strong position, then when it comes to uses like medical uses, when it comes to educational purposes, when it comes to these matters, then even drawing things that has been permitted. So there will be, of course, for the purposes of education, permissibility. If not, to what extent would it be permissible? What if you only see a shadow of the person or the person's hands? My second question would be, if it is permissible to train AI for a job, training AI wouldn't be creating images, only looking at what AI is creating and giving it feedback about what it can improve. So this is the bit I was referring to, the training part. and that would be relevant and fine to do. There would be no issues there. I'm also wondering if it depends on the AI company itself and who owns it, because some of the companies are corrupt and support Israel or have bad intentions with the AI. So would train the AI be contributing to that? No, we will take the position of the Hanafi school as such, in which it would isolate the task itself, and you would assess the value of the task on that particular task. Of course, Taqwa would say that one should be a little bit careful and be some more selective, but that would be Taqwa rather than Fatwa. The hadith that relates to this topic would be this one, which is the famous hadith on imagery. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Hope you are well in Iman and health. I am Barakallah Fiqh. I wanted to ask regarding a common ruling that many people mention, that if a person hears the adhan, it becomes incumbent upon him to pray in that masjid, and that he is not allowed to leave the masjid after the adhan has been called. Could you please clarify, is this ruling authentic and established in fiqh? Does it apply to every situation, or are there exceptions? Is the prohibition of leaving the masjid after adhan considered haram, makruh, or simply discouraged? Yes, it is correct that if you hear the adhan in the masjid, then you should stay and pray the salah. You should not leave. Why? Because you're acting contrary to hayya al-salah, hayya al-falah. You're doing quite the opposite. There will be, on certain grounds, permissibility for you to leave. For example, if you've already prayed that salah, or if you're an imam in another masjid, or because you need to go meet somebody in another masjid, then there'll be some scope of permissibility. The prohibition is not necessarily simply discouraged. It's makruh, and is close to, this makruh, or that comes close to hurma. So it's something that should be avoided. It's not something that can be taken lightly. But there are reasons, there are exceptions that could stop a person and say he's got an appointment that he needs to be at, then he needs to go. The best thing to do is, if you know that adhan gets called at a certain time, is to leave the masjid before the adhan gets called, or to structure yourself in such a way. Can you get blood tests while fasting? Yeah, so blood taking, giving blood or having blood taken from you does not necessarily break your fast, because it's not the ingestion of anything of nourishment. It is actually the withdrawing of blood. It can become disliked if it can cause you to feel nauseous, or it can make you feel dizzy or weak. But usually by the sounds of a blood test, you're giving a very small volume, so it shouldn't necessarily make you feel uncomfortable either. The Imam did not sit for the last tashahud and ended up a fifth rak'ah with sujood. Should he have also added another to make it 6? Afterwards, he would have done a sajda and then repeated the jama'ah. Yeah, by not sitting in the fourth has meant that the salah is incomplete. What he should have done is, as he was rising, he should have been reminded, and he would have come back down and completed his salah and done sajda sahwa. If he's added a fifth, then yes, I guess if he's done the fifth, then he could have completed it. But as you said, he could have stood up for a 6th rak'ah in order to get that unit and then completed sajda sahwa. Does someone who travel after having started a fast and then break it, he will only have to do qada and no kafara? No. This is a misunderstanding, that a person who travels has to be a traveler at the time of imsak. So for instance, if say imsak is 5 in the morning, okay, whereby you have to stop eating before 5, and he sets off on a journey at 4 in the morning, then and imsak comes, then he doesn't need to fast, because he's a musafir at the time of the hukum. If, on the other hand, he's going to travel at 9 a.m., then he has to fast at 5, because he's not a musafir. So the hukum of safar has to be there at the time of imsak. Okay. In reference to, is it lawful to eat fruits and vegetables growing from the house and land that is house land that is purchased with a conventional bank loan, riba? Does it make a difference whether the owner is a Muslim or non-Muslim? Does this apply to rental properties? Please elaborate this so we have a better understanding. The Sharia doesn't apply, obviously, to non-Muslims, and non-Muslims can gift us, and we can receive their gifts. So therefore, in that case, absolutely, one can receive one's gift. The reason I'm hesitant on giving a broad hukum of people who have houses on loans, houses on mortgages, is because, unfortunately, especially here in the UK, I can't comment for the rest of the world, but in the UK, lots of Muslims buy houses on mortgages, a very high amount. So therefore, it would, you would be reducing yourself to not eating at virtually anybody's house at all. And that would be including your parents, brothers and sisters. Hence the reason why it should be avoided rather than me saying it's going to be haram. In reference to a person borrowed money from an individual who has since passed away without being able to repay the debt before their death. So the person borrowed the money and the deceased is the owner of the money, not the living person, okay? So the borrower is the sole heir of the deceased. Furthermore, the deceased also had unfulfilled obligations related to misfasts and prayers requiring fidya. What is the appropriate religious course of action in this scenario, considering the intertwined nature of the debt, inheritance of those spiritual obligations? The debt is not intertwined because the debt was owed to the deceased as such. The inheritance would come to the sole heir. The spiritual obligations can only be done if the person who is dying had set aside a third of his wealth. If he said, a third of my wealth, I want you to use for my fidya because I didn't pray or I didn't fast or whatever, then one can do so. In this case, the sole heir has that choice, doesn't he? Because apart from debt that the deceased owes, the debt and the deceased owes no debt. In fact, money is owed to the deceased. So the deceased does not need to pay anybody. So that's clear. His burial costs are taken out. So that's what's done. So the burial costs are taken out. And then also what happens is that if he had bequeathed a third, if he hadn't bequeathed a third, okay, then we don't normally extract that third. It is really, we encourage his children, who tend to be the heirs, that look, if you find out that your father or mother owed money, owed salah, owed a hajj, owed zakah, owed waghaira, then what to do is make sure that you take some money out and cover it. But if the deceased never bequeathed any money, okay, if the deceased did not bequeath any money, then it is up to the heirs, okay? Now, in this case, the borrower, who is the heir, so let's carry that on. If the borrower, the heir, still has the intention to pay his debt back by fulfilling the spiritual obligations of the deceased, would they continue to take this into consideration when calculating their assets for determining their zakah obligations? So now, in this case, the borrower owes money to the deceased. He wants to pay this back to the estate because he's not paying it back to the individual because the individual is dead. So he wants to pay it back to the estate. But when he's giving it back to the estate, the reason why he's giving it back to the estate is to fulfill the spiritual obligations of the deceased. Would they continue to take this into consideration when calculating their assets for determining their zakah obligations? Obviously, they will only deduct that amount which will constitute the fidya. There is no point in paying the debt back to the estate if you're then going to reclaim it as an heir, if you're the sole heir. So all you would do is you would calculate, if this, I'm assuming it's his son, let's assume it's his son, the son would then say, okay, the son would then calculate and say, my father owed X number of salahs, Y number of fasts. I'm going to calculate that and I'm going to give that fidya from the debt which I owed my father, and I'm going to clear that. Then he may deduct that from his zakah. But rather than deduct it from his zakah, what is he waiting for? He should immediately send that money across and clear the fidya. Then the zakat is not due. Assalamu alaikum, Sam. I pray you well. Let me just read a couple on here. There is a new society which only opts for local sighting, and there is a possibility of it in the UK. So why can we not just stick to local sighting rather than extending to other countries? Oh, mashallah, if I had £1 for every time I've answered that question, I would have lots of pounds. Okay, I've answered this question so many times. The reason being is that this is still in its infancy, Umar, still in its infancy. We do not have a large number of sighters that go out regularly every month, especially in the winter months when it's dreary, wet, cold, and nightfall falls early. And therefore, there is a possibility, whilst we are not unanimous, because we are not unanimous, until we can bring the whole of UK on local sighting, then there is always going to be a sizable community that will borrow news from outside of the UK, like Saudi. And so what will happen is, unfortunately, there may be days that the local sighters miss it due to lack of numbers. And then it could be that we start to fall out of sync even more, because as we know, Saudi is very enthusiastic in sighting the moon. They will sight the moon even when it is near impossible to sight the moon, as we've just seen today. And if you've missed that, you watch this again, first 5-10 minutes of this particular Fiqhour, in which I explain what's gone on, right? So therefore, until we can bring our whole community, then yes, absolutely, local sighting is the way forward. But we have to do it in such a way that we bring all our congregation together. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Karazolia. Okay. If I buy a house in another country to use for myself, knowing that real estate always seems to go up, do I need to pay zakat? If the house is bought not to sell, and obviously we all know real estate value appreciates, then you don't need to give zakat. If obviously your niyat is to sell that and make some money, then it's an investment. It's just a transfer of one asset into another asset form. It is not an asset which is making money. It is an asset of value in itself. So that's very different. Okay, that's very different. So let me reiterate. If you buy a house in any country, which is to use, even though you know in the back of your mind that the real estate will appreciate, you do not need to give zakat. If, on the other hand, you buy a house to convert liquidity, because you know fiat money depreciates, and you think, you know what, best thing to do is lock this up into a house, which every 15 years will virtually double. Let me lock this into a property so that its value is appreciated. Then it's not something that you give zakat on. Basically, it was personal use and not tijara. Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum. Can you shed some light on Afghanistan's moon sighting, as it can prove Saudi might be right? Yes, I'm astounded at Afghanistan's moon sighting. What can I say? I do not know the exact process, so I cannot comment. Obviously, I will only comment if I knew their process. The only thing I can believe it to be is human error, which happens. You know, I'm not even saying that the Saudi is intentionally trying to prove, you know, to be giving dates outside. You know, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people are very enthusiastic to see the Hilal, very enthusiastic. Why wouldn't you? Bringing on the month of Ramadan, you know, it's a beautiful month. Why not, you know, have it earlier? Okay, so, you know, that's the enthusiasm. And therefore, any glint, remember, it was 1 minute on the horizon. Any glint you see in the sky, you believe it to be the Hilal. You say, I seen it there, and that's it. So that could be the case as well in that potential problem. I have a question. I know of someone who is building an app which will have AI, and I want to know what you think. They are planning to create from scratch an AI which has access to all sources of books from all three madhab. All three madhab. There's 4 madhab. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi. You just deducted one. I wonder which one you deducted. They would be deeply offended by that. So yeah, AI is going to be used for that anyway. There's a lot of AI use, but AI is, bear it in mind, is not, you know, fact. Okay, it can make errors, so we have to be careful. And when a scholar makes an error, that is still rewarded. Okay, when a scholar makes an error, it is still rewarded because he's been through the training and he has the isnad. Whereas a machine makes an error, then we have a problem. So we have to always have scholars in the loop, because we know AI can make errors. Try AI on other things and it will make errors. Gold price is astronomical these days. I like the way you linked zakat with moon sighting. Excellent. Should we use silver to calculate zakat, which would make it better for the faqir? Generally speaking, the ulama do encourage using silver as the nisab. So we should be using silver as nisab. The only time where I would consider gold is when we speak of qurbani, yani udhiyah. Because when it comes to udhiyah, an animal can cost £300-400. And if the nisab is, say, £600, then a person who has £600, so say somebody has £600, nisab is 500, then because he's above 500, he would have to do udhiyah. But if the animal is 400, he would become a faqir because his value, his asset, his cash would drop to £100, £200. So for that reason, I've always encouraged gold. But now the silver price is, I think, 1100 or something like that. We checked it yesterday. So it's quite high. So yes, silver is the appropriate one. It's a group of scholars who are building it with their mindset and access to all correct books. Then I guess that's the best group of people that need to make it, inshallah. Okay, moving on. Please do carry on asking. I'll jump on between the Markaz, al-Ifta, al-Qāḍī gents in here. Assalamu alaikum, I pray you're well. When calculating zakat, generally it is mentioned that we are allowed to deduct 12 months of mortgage payments as part of our liabilities minus the interest amount. If a person has an Islamic mortgage, you just put the word Islamic mortgage in speech marks because there's no real thing, such thing as Islamic mortgage, and I'll mention that. Would this still apply even though it's technically not transacted as a loan? Rather, it is based on the diminishing musharaka model, which he knows well, mashallah. So, liabilities like debts may be deducted. And I say may be deducted. It's not necessarily that we should deduct them. They may be deducted if we feel that if we do not deduct them, we would be in financial difficulty. I'll explain why this deduction exists. Back in the day, in the time of the companions and very much after, generally speaking, people's earnings were twice a year. So for example, if they were a tradesman, then they would go on travels twice a year, once in winter, once in summer. And they would take their wares and they would sell them in Yemen or in Sham. And likewise, people would travel to Mecca maybe twice a year, once in winter, once in summer. So people would be able to sell their wares. Harvest was generally once a year, sometimes twice a year. So therefore, they had earned all their money in only 2 periods of their time. So if they earned all their money in only 2 periods in the year, and zakat was given on it, then it would have a direct impact on them being able to eat throughout the year. So for that reason, okay, debts were permitted to be as liabilities to be deducted. We earn, obviously, every month. Right? We earn every month. So even if we had, £40,000, yeah, even if we had £40,000, right, the deduction of zakat is 1,000 because it's 1/40th, is £1,000, right? And let's say we earned £2,000 a month. So if I've got £40,000 and I pay £1,000 zakat, next month I earn £2,000. So I'm back to square one again. I'm all right again. Okay. So, so therefore we shouldn't be, generally speaking, deducting debts. But if we are, then one may deduct just the payments to purchase the property if in the contract you had promised to pay and buy a certain percentage every year, because then it becomes like a promise and it's virtually a debt now. Okay. If you haven't, if you're paying as and which you want, then it's not necessarily a debt and therefore you wouldn't deduct it. But if you had a promise that I will pay X £100 a month, every month for the next 30 years, normally they do a one-sided promise, then yes, you may deduct that if you so wish. Can I give zakat to my nieces who live at home with their parents and have their basic needs met, yet have no wealth of their own? Yes, you may be, if your nieces are baligha. Okay, if they are baligha, then yes, you may. If they are children, yani nabaligh, as in they're not reached bulugh yet, then their needs are met by their parents, and that should suffice. Okay, it's only if they've reached bulugh, then yes, you should. Why is there no kafara for someone made his niyyah after Fajr and before Islamic midday? Why is there no kafara for someone who made his niyyah after Fajr and before Islamic midday? I'm assuming that you mean this in Ramadan. Oh, you're testing me now. If a person has not made a niyyah at the time of imsak, then it is not clear whether he's fasting or not. So we don't know whether he's broken his fast or not broken his fast. It is the breaking of the fast which is the issue. Okay, you are breaking an act of worship. You are renegading against Allah. You are challenging against Allah's commandments, that don't eat, don't drink. Whereas a person who has never made intention, he's not. Okay, so that's as best as I can explain. Mufti Saab, in regards to AI, what the brother is saying, isn't there a risk that it will take away the importance of going to ulama and considering the scenario alongside the fatwa masala? So there is that risk, of course. It's appreciated, we get that. But you'll see now, for example, Shamila, online Shamila, a lot of ulama use it because it's a very useful resource, okay? And it's a go-to place. So I think you can't stop development. You can't stop technological advancement. It's something that is going to happen. You just have to make sure it's the right people that are doing it. And as I said at that time as well, that yes, even if AI is producing answers, all it should be doing is speeding things up, but you should get clarification and validation from ulama. That has to be the case because AI is not perfect. So I'm sure I mentioned that, and I repeat that again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope and pray you and all family are well, Mufti Saab. I am Barakallahu Feek. Please, can you explain the concept of nikah misyar and if this is valid in the Sunni Hanafi tradition? I'll come back to that because there's different forms, but remind me about the misyar. Assalamu alaikum. What can one do Islamically against suicidal thoughts? Okay, wa alaikum salam. So suicidal thoughts, okay. Now there can be numerous reasons why a person is having suicidal thoughts. It can be a chemical imbalance. It could be something that this person has suffered emotionally. It could be the circumstances this person finds himself in. It could be a person's weakness in their iman and they're constantly being troubled. So there's numerous sources to it. So there's no kind of one blanket answer. So if it is a chemical imbalance or if it is a medicinal issue, then obviously a person should seek medicinal intervention. There's no doubt about it. If you've got a cold or a flu, then we are permitted to use medicine in order to cure us of any ailments or illnesses that we have. So there's nothing wrong in that. So you can't give a blanket answer. A person will need to speak to a specialist and start having these conversations with them. Preferably somebody who has Islamic knowledge as well, rather than somebody who's just a psychologist or a therapist. And start having this conversation and I start explaining to the person what it is that he's feeling and why he's feeling that. And once they've had this conversation, that will slowly come through. But that's that pathway. The other pathway is when a person's left with their own thoughts, it's a dangerous place to be. It's a dangerous place to be. Talking is very, very important. So having a congregation, having a community, and I think also what I've seen from here is later the brother asks a question in which he says, I'm a convert or a revert. So this brother maybe has left his other faith, his other way of life. And as a consequence, he's lost a large community, a large network, a large number of friends, family possibly. And that can obviously have a significant burden on a person. And sometimes when people have had a traumatic childhood and they have, less value of themselves, then that can also. And like I said, sometimes you can just have that imbalance. Okay, you can have that kind of chemical imbalance where you need to address that. So talking to the right people, having a community, giving yourself some focus, giving yourself some objectives in life, some purpose, understanding that there are people who want you around them, that rely on you being around them. So it's not just about yourself and things of this nature. But as I said, I can't, because of the nature of today's lecture, I can't necessarily go into too deeply, but I hope I've touched upon a few points which will assist in you moving forward, inshallah. Mufti Saab, I was once not feeling well and broke my fast. I felt guilty, thinking I should have soldiered on or solided on. as I felt weak, but thinking I should have pushed on. Can I just make up that one? Well, I don't know if your guilt is speaking or if you genuinely had power to fast. If you genuinely had power to fast and you broke it, then that is kafara if it's a fast of Ramadan. If you genuinely were in a deep problem, you were struggling, you were going to collapse, not just weak, you're going to feel weak, you've not eaten. Okay, you're bound to feel weak. Whenever I've had quite a long week, like this weekend, I had a very long weekend. And I can feel it today, and then I had a quite active session yesterday. So today I'm feeling it catching up with me. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling fatigued. I can feel my throat is hurting a little bit as though something is coming on. So, you can feel that. But, should I not fast? Well, I'm not fasting tomorrow. But say if it was Ramadan tomorrow and I was going to fast, should I not fast? Of course not. This is because I'm just tired. A bit of rest, plenty of fluid before I go to sleep. Plenty of fluid before I get up. It should be okay. Okay. So you will know best. Ask your heart, ask yourself. It's very difficult for, you know what the parameters are. Now, did you, were you a bit too quick at the jump to break your fast, or did you give it that due consideration as you feel you may have? I will leave that decision up to you. If one is employed for X number of hours, must these hours be diligently, meticulously honored? Yes, they should be. Of course, given the Urfi understanding that, you're kind of excused to go for toilet breaks, I don't know, every few hours, you're excused to make a cup of coffee, you're excused to have a quick conversation. That is the kind of norm in the office, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, because that's accepted that you're not a robot, you're not a computer. You will need to go to use amenities. You will need to drink. You will need to eat. You need to get up, stretch your legs. You need to talk to a colleague. You might ask them how their weekend went. So as long as you're, keeping within those boundaries of what is accepted socially, then it's fine. If on the other hand, you're bashing a game secretly on your laptop, or you're dueling through, trolling through TikTok, or you're just texting your mates on your phone, this is not correct, because you were paid for those hours. You were not paid to play on your phone. You have your breaks and your lunch for that. Okay. A person has given a khula, what he said to a lady on behalf of the husband. The husband has no idea about anything and just got a notification of the outcome. He's not part of a Sharia council. The husband previously ignored correspondence from another Sharia council, and that was one of the bases this person used to issue khula on that spot. He's not an alim. He does some sort of ruqya. What should the husband do? Nobody can issue a khula. Only the husband can. I hear this and I always say, are you sure it's a khula? That's what I'm going to say the same way. Are you sure it's a khula? Because no one can issue a khula except the husband. What a Sharia council can do is a fasakh of the nikah, meaning they abrogate the nikah. Because the only person who can issue talaq is the husband, or even khul'a can only be issued by the husband. Nobody else has that authority to do so. However, if a husband is doing zulm on his wife, right? If he's oppressing her, if he's not fulfilling her rights, if he's not giving her the due time and attention that she seeks, then she may go to a Sharia council, because her husband is not divorcing her. And he can say to the Sharia council, my husband does A, B, C, D. I don't want him to do that. And I want to separate from him. The Sharia council will arbitrate over that. They will look at it and say, okay. Oh, goodness me, he beats you. He does this, he does that. So then they will write to him to say, look, your wife is claiming you beat her. Your wife is claiming you do this. Your wife is claiming you do that. How do you plead? Now, if the brother doesn't engage with the process, that's wrong on his behalf. Because if the ulama can't resolve our issues, then who is? He's being stubborn and arrogant to say, well, no, I'm not going to get in touch. Why not? How else your wife, it doesn't want to be with you? Get over it. You're not some handsome, highly intelligent, attractive, catch that your wife is head over heels in love with you. She wants to separate from you. That's why she went to a bunch of scholars saying, I want to get away from my husband. So accept that. That's something he has to deal with. It's only his ego that's not allowing him to accept it. So he should engage with the ulama and posit the dalil or the evidence forward. If, on the other hand, he is found wanting, that he's not done it, and he has been wrong, then he should put his hands up and fix that and plead with his wife to take him back. But sometimes you see men take their wives for granted. And when they have the power, they say, well, I won't divorce you. What are you going to do now? And this is where the issues arise. So to repeat, a khul'a can only be given by the husband. Fasq takes place by a Sharia council where they abrogate it. And sometimes, I've sat in 1 or 2 Sharia councils. I don't sit on a board. I've been as an observer in order to give advice. And when I was sat on them, I had a conversation afterwards, and they said, look, Mufti, the wife hates her husband. He doesn't want to give a divorce. They've not done anything wrong. The husband's not done anything wrong. He gives her food, he provides a roof over her head. He does everything that a husband is expected to do. But she just despises him. She just thinks he's ugly. She just thinks, he smells, he's disgusting. She doesn't want him. Now, how can we force her back to him when she's saying, I want to know what to do with him? We're not compatible. We just don't get on. He's just, it's completely different to me. You can't force a woman to stay with you and be happy with you. It's not like you're living in some mountaintop where that woman has no choice. She's living in the UK, for crying out loud. And what we don't want to do is to force a woman in, leaving Islam because of this. Just because we don't want to let her go. If a wife doesn't want to be with a husband, it's I believe less manly for the man to keep her. It's more manly for him to say, okay, you want another man to look after you. I'm clearly not manly enough for you, so I will let you go. I will find another wife. Why would you stay with a woman who doesn't want to be with you? So, I get these conversations a lot, and I get some, I had this chap who WhatsApped me, very rude, very, arrogant, very entitled. And he was saying that his wife left him. I thought, subhanAllah, do you blame her? I've only exchanged 2-3 messages with you, and I want to leave you. That poor woman, shared a house with you. She shared, her life with you, and she wants to leave you. We've only exchanged 2 messages, and I want to leave you. I want to block you. I want to throw my phone away. What kind of a person are you, brother? So, these things we have to think about. But yeah, just to repeat, a husband is the only one who can give a khul'a. He can't give. Nobody can give a khul'a on the behalf. What should the husband do? Well, he needs to speak to some ulama in a respectful manner and say, look, this is this, and take this document of this khul'a to say, look, this is a khul'a and I've not done that. And that's the only way. Otherwise, there's very little, clearly the woman doesn't want to be with him. Otherwise, why would she ask for the khul'a? So let her go. Let her go. You don't have to, there's a reason why talaq exists. You don't have to stay with her. She don't want to stay with you. You don't have to stay with her. Marry somebody else. Get some more contentment in your life. Let her marry another man. Maybe she wants to be with another, be away and let her live her normal life. If that's what the reason is. I said, I'm only going by those 2-3 messages. Salaam wa alaikum salam. Hope you are well. Alhamdulillah, all is good. My father passed away 20 years ago. He received the inheritance. He received his inheritance, but did not give a share to his sisters. What should I do now? My father passed away 20 years ago. He received his inheritance, but he did not give a share to his sisters. Okay. I'm assuming your grandfather passed away many years ago. When he passed away, your father inherited, and your aunties did not inherit because your father, I don't know what happened, whether the inheritance was misappropriated or whether the inheritance was taken all by your father. I don't know. What you should do your best is to fix that wrong. Fix your father's mistake, assuming it was your father's, or fix whoever's mistake it was, and ensure that that division was done correctly, and make sure that your aunties, i.e. your father's sisters, receive their share. Can we deliver the khutbah in a mix of Arabic and English so the congregation that comes late benefits rather than hears Arabic, which they don't understand? The khutbah is specifically a ritual act of worship. As a ritual act of worship, it's got to be delivered in Arabic. There's nothing wrong in summarizing it quickly after you've done the khutbah, before you stand for salah, making a quick summary. But generally speaking, if people just don't feel the need to turn up 5-10 minutes earlier to learn, then what can you do? Because the khutbahs are not that long. Khutbah, generally speaking, is 3, 5, 6 minutes in total. He gave in writing, I said it clearly. As I said, Ajib, I don't understand. If I have 2 houses and earn through the second whilst living in the first, do such scenarios make me sahib nisab for hirman of zakah? or hirman of zakat, as in recipient of zakat. Yes, of course, you got more than enough here, mashallah. I'm assuming that's what you mean. With a kafara, can I feed instead of fasting 60 days straight? I wasn't feeling weak in terms of hunger. I looked at Islam Q&A, etc. It was more physical weakness and not feeling well. No, because to go from the fasting is only obviously if a person doesn't have capacity to fast, then he should go feeding. We all feel weak. I'll tell you, I know people who are in their 80s who fast and they feel weak. You're going to feel weak. Your sleep is affected. Your eating is affected. Your water drinking is affected. So it's going to be affected. Okay, let me just jump back on here. Question for a scholar. I hope I'm one. A family of 6 individuals are planning to go for their first Hajj this year. Alhamdulillah. They have already made their arrangements and intend to fulfill this obligation. However, they have just received the news that a very close family member, not one of the traveling, has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and the doctors have said they may not have long to live. The family are now considering cancelling their Hajj in order to remain by their loved one's side during what may be their final days. What is the Sharia ruling in this situation? If Hajj has already become fard upon them and they have the ability to go, would it be permissible to delay it for this reason? Does being present with a dying relative take precedence over performing one's first obligatory Hajj? Would the ruling differ if there is no one else available to care for the sick person? We would greatly appreciate guidance. Okay, so something which is fard, all right, like Hajj, should be performed. It should not be delayed. Okay, should not be delayed. So therefore, in this case, they should go. All right. Would it be permitted for this reason? No, they wouldn't. This wouldn't be grounds for delaying it if everything is there. Does being present with a dying relative take precedence? Not really, because this is just an emotional thing rather than actually being there. Of course, if one of the people was the main carer of this person, then yes, that could exclude the person because they've got no other carer. That's a different thing altogether. And then they can go the following year. But generally speaking, it's not anybody's relative. It's just a close family member. So really, this is no grounds. And they should go because that's the best place for them to go. Because if this person does pass, the du'as will maybe accepted over there and it will be all good. Salam Mufti. Hope you're well. Wanted some clarification of moon sighting. It's that time of the year now. How many trustworthy witnesses are needed to confirm the moon sighting for Ramadan or Eid? So trustworthy witnesses for Ramadan and Eid depends on the sky. Okay. If, for example, it's a cloudy sky, then Ramadan, a witness suffices. For Eid, 2 witnesses suffice. If on the other end, it is not a cloudy sky, then it has to be a large group of people. If someone mistakes a planet, star, cloud for the moon, and scholars accept it, who carries the sin? Nobody carries the sin as such, because it is if they follow due process. As long as they follow due process, then there is no sin. The sin only comes in if they do not follow due process. If the sighting later proves wrong, are our fasts still valid? Again, due process will come in here. Okay, has due process been followed? Is a scholar sinful for accepting incorrect testimony only if negligent? Only if negligent. That person is sinful. If a country repeatedly makes wrong sightings of the moon, should people still rely on those scholars? No, they shouldn't. It's clear. No, they should not. If only one video stroke person claims sighting in the whole country, how should that be evaluated? That's the bit on the due diligence. That's the bit on the due diligence. Clearly, due diligence would say that that person is an outsider, an outlier, and therefore his view should not be taken, especially when you look at the whole globe or the countries there. Should others with telescopes and scopes normally be able to confirm it locally? They can do, but we normally, sighting we tend to go is the unassisted eyes. How long should verification take before announcing Ramadan and Eid? A lot of due diligence takes place. Sometimes it takes us 2-3 hours before we can make an announcement. Is it normal for announcements to come very late at night? Yes, it is, if you're doing your full analysis and assessments and all your checks and balances. What makes testimony acceptable in Islamic law for moon sighting? As long as the person is upright, not known to lie and deceive, he's honest, and he explains his sighting clearly in an appropriate way, then that is a potential testimony that can be accepted. Can zakat be paid in the form of clothing? Zakat should be taken from the assets that you have and given directly to the recipient. One should not convert the asset that you have. And generally speaking, we tend to deal in gold. So we will give that in gold. Okay. However, if the recipient gives you permission to convert your, let's say gold, sorry, cash. Normally we have cash as in pounds, dollars, euros. So we pay in that amount. And then we may convert the form of cash at the other end. If, however, you have permissibility from the recipient who tells you that please convert my zakat into clothes or food or a tent or sanitary equipment or whatever, then you may do so because you have permission directly from the recipient. When does Ramadan start for the UK this year? Ramadan starts for the UK this year. We will know tomorrow, inshallah. And that is why at 6 p.m., if you join me, there will be a live feed. I won't be talking much to you, but there'll be a live feed where I'm having conversations with my colleagues when we'll be gathering information from the UK in order to make a statement, and in the absence of the UK, the nearest Muslim country. Assalamu alaikum. Question from Mufti. If you made an investment in a company via their app in which you become a shareholder for a property they purchase, do you pay zakat on the money you put into it? For example, if you invested £500, do you pay zakat on that, or do you only pay on the profit you receive each month or whatever is in the portfolio at the time of zakat? If the property is a buy-to-let, so everybody puts their money in, when you put your money in, all that money is gathered and a house is bought, a property is bought, and then that property is given out for rent. And when the rent comes in, then depending the proportionate amount of each shareholder is given a share of the rent, then yes, you only give zakat on the rent that you bring in when that rent is added to all your other assets on your nisab date. Assalamu alaikum, dear Mufti. Is it sunnah to break the fast with 3 dates, or what are the confirmed sunnahs to break the fast with? One can break the fast with dates or break the fast with water. In the absence of that sunnah, in the absence of dates and water, you can break your fast with anything really. What tips would you give a reaver on what you should focus on in Ramadan? I would say to you, and this is the brother who asked before, I would say, brother, is find a congregation, find a masjid and stick with them. And hopefully they'll have a program through the day. They'll have a program through the day after each salah, and you can engage in what's there. Because you need community. Being alone is very difficult, especially the month of Ramadan. You need a community because then you're around people who are doing the same things that you're doing. Assalamu alaikum. Should one pray Tarawih before or after the Witr Salah? You pray Tarawih before the Witr Salah. Okay, that clears that. Okay, what's going on here? Let me see what we have on the ladies group, because that were all the gents' questions. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, you and family are well. Please answer the following question. If possible, please answer in Urdu or no. Can zakat be given to someone, not a relative, to cover the costs of a wedding? The father is disabled and unable to work much. He earns 15,000 rupees a month, which just about covers the cost of school's fees for 3 children and his household expenses. He has 4 children in total. The eldest daughter is getting married later this year, inshallah, and the family have asked from my mum for financial support. We just wanted to know if it would be possible to donate zakat. Well, we don't donate zakat, we give zakat. If not, we can donate a sadaqah. You can donate sadaqah. जब हम zakat देंगे ना, तो हम देखेंगे कि कोई आदमी या कोई औरत के हम zakat देंगे कि वो निसाब की कम उनके पास रकम है, पैसे है, या निसाब से ज्यादा. तो निसाब को देखना पड़ेगा कि पाकिस्तान में निसाब यानी 612 ग्राम सिल्वर कितने कीमत है. तो अगर ये जो फैमिली मेंबर है उनके पूरे पैसे, एसेट्स, सोना वगैरह इससे कम है, तो फिर वो उनको ज़कात यानी उनको अपने ज़कात दे सकता है. लेकिन अगर ज्यादा है तो फिर नहीं दे सकता है. तो अब देखेंगे, और ये भी देखना पड़ेगा कि इससे कोई यानी इस्तेमाल से ज्यादा कोई माल है, कपड़े है, कोई और चीज है, तो फिर भी उनको वो फिर ज़कात नहीं, उनको ज़कात अब नहीं दे सकता है. So just for the benefit of the English speakers, is that when you're giving zakat to anybody, what you have to determine is if they're below nisab. If they're below nisab, then you can give them zakat. But they not only have to be below nisab in terms of wealth, rupees or pounds or whatever, they should also be below nisab in terms of other assets that they may have, which are surplus to requirements. Surplus to requirements might be extra clothing, extra furniture, extra animals. Okay, why? Because they are encouraged to sell those, and they're encouraged to sell those and use that money instead. Okay, barakallahu feek. Why do we local brothers, some reverts, asking me if they should follow the local masjid for Tarawih tonight, even though their country is starting the day after? Well, if they're local brothers, meaning they're in the UK, then they should follow UK. Shouldn't be following Albania now because they're in the UK. So they should follow UK, and obviously UK sighting is what I encourage. But if their local masjid is following Saudi, then of course they can go with that. Why do we not accept the use of every available optic aid in the sighting of the new moon? We seem to embrace technology and advancement, but not in respect to moon sightings. We can use it, but the only problem is, Suleiman, is that the optical aids are improving all the time. They're getting better and better and better and better and better and better. So where do you draw the line? Okay, where do you draw the line? And it's going to be such that we're putting an unnecessary burden on ourselves. So it might be that in some countries, they're just using their normal sight. In other countries, we're using this super duper binoculars, never been invented. So what we do, instead, is stick to sighting. Everybody's got sighting. I appreciate our eyesight is different, but everybody's got sighting. And there's good sighters and bad sighters in the UK. There's good sighters and bad sighters in California. There's good sighters and bad sighters in Toronto. There's good sighters and bad sighters in Nairobi. There's good sighters and bad sighters in Sydney. And there's only good sighters in Tumer. The joke, I'm sure you'll get it. Meaning, right, is that that is equal in all humans. Whereas when you start getting fancy gear, then you're going to be able to see, get more and more fancier, and it can be problematic. So for that reason, we don't do it. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. Hope you're well. Alhamdulillah, all is good. Remember me throughout Ramadan when it starts in your du'as. Barakallahu feek. And you likewise, Sajid Bhai. Why are using silver nisab to determine to accept zakat? Is peanuts. How will the poor every be for? It's not peanuts. It's about £1,100. If £1,100 is peanuts to you, Suleiman, just send it to me. I'll eat your peanuts there, and I'll just distribute it to the rest of the people. 1,100 is a reasonable amount. Okay, gold is about £10,000. So are you telling me somebody who has £8,000 is not rich? Based on gold nisab, he won't be considered as rich because nisab determines being rich. So if somebody's got £8,000, according to your definition, he will not be rich. But £8,000 is, if you got that's surplus to requirements. That's disposable wealth. That's a tidy amount, 8 grand. Okay, that's a tidy amount. So yeah, that's I'm still making the same point. If we use gold nisab, Suleiman, and somebody had 8 grand, according to you, you should still be able to give them zakat because they're below the gold nisab. So they are poor. How can you give zakat to somebody who's got £8,000 surplus to his everyday needs, excluding his debts? Disposable asset. That's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Okay, so that's why we don't say it. That's why we use silver. Okay, that's why we use silver. Benefit. Oh, I think that's a typo. Should we make it gold for them? No. Jazakallah khair for the very informative session. May Allah reward you abundantly. Ameen. To receive zakat, yes. Okay, alhamdulillah. So I think that's covered everything. So unless there is some dying question, please do ask now. Otherwise, inshallah, we will be live tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. It won't be a fiqh hour because that's why we had Tuesday. Normally Wednesday is our fiqh hour. But if some moon-related questions come up tomorrow, I'll answer the moon-related questions. Oh, yes, the Hanafi Misyar. Sorry. So for the benefit of people, right? So I'm going to get you a technical. I wanted to find a technical definition. That's why a misyar marriage can be defined as an official marriage contract between a man and a woman, with the condition that the spouses give up one, two, or several of their rights by their own free will. Okay, this is this definition. All right. Where are we? Sorry. These include living together, equal division of nights between wives in case of polygamy, the wife's right to housing, financial support. In some cases, only one right is relinquished by the spouses, such as living together, but the husband is still required to provide housing for the wife and maintain her financially. Whilst in other instances, the wife gives up all her rights, including housing and financial support. The bottom line in such arrangements is that the couple agree to live separately from each other as before their nikah contract and see each other to fulfill their needs in a lawful manner when they so desire. At times, a misyar marriage is contracted on a temporary basis, which ends in divorce on the expiration of the contract. So that's a misyar. As for the Islamic ruling concerning such marriages, there are two issues to consider. One is the validity and the permissibility. Okay. If all the basic requirements for an Islamic marriage contract are fulfilled, then this type of marriage arrangement is permissible and valid, and the couple will not be guilty of being involved in an unlawful, illicit relationship. What are the basic requirements in the nikah? There's obviously ijab, there is qabul, okay, there is one majlis, and there is also the presence of at least two male witnesses, right? That's clear. And obviously, the wali will give consent for the woman. That is in the other madhahibs, not necessarily in the Hanafi, but it's, we still say that they should be in the Hanafi as well, unless there is no social equality between the husband and wife, and the lady comes from a higher social strata than the man, then the father can reject that. That's in the Hanafi school. Only in that case he can reject it. There cannot be a fixed time period. Okay, that's impermissible. The marriage is there and that's it. So I hope that answers that question. What's the Islamic date today? Today is the 29th of Sha'ban here in the UK. But if you follow Saudi, then it is the first of Ramadan. So tomorrow, as I said, we will be mainly focused on the Hilal, and we will be discussing that. I won't be discussing it. I might have you there whilst I'm having conversations with my colleagues. So don't expect. But if I see questions come up, I will answer accordingly. We will also start our guidance for the guided, okay, which you should have seen on our WhatsApp channels. If you've not seen on our WhatsApp channels, then obviously where have you been? It's a video that we sent around a while ago. Guidance for the guided, which means after Taraweeh, which we're probably aiming for 9:45. Obviously, the first Taraweeh is tomorrow. So after the first Taraweeh at 9:45, so there'll be a double session tomorrow, you lucky people. One will be the 6 p.m. one, which is just about us declaring the Hilal or not, as the case may be. And then at 9:45, it will be the guidance for the guided. And then inshallah, that will carry on till next week. Then next Wednesday, the guidance for the guided will be a fiqh hour, but it will be in the evening, because obviously around 7 it will be Taraweeh, so we won't be doing a fiqh hour. So just to keep that in mind, tomorrow 6 p.m. we have the Hilal declaration. 9:45 inshallah we have guidance for the guided, which will be the case every day inshallah if I'm well and available. And then the following Wednesday, so that'll be every day, and then the following Wednesday, instead of guidance for the guided, it will be a fiqh hour at 9:45, and that will be the case every Wednesday. Please do share the channel for other people, family members, so that they can benefit also in Ramadan. One is to attend the live sessions, but also to benefit from the pre-recordings. There's lots of videos. I think there's nearly 900 videos on our YouTube channel. So there's plenty there for people to watch, plenty there for people to engage in. There's going to be a lot of, scrolling on phones, unfortunately, in Ramadan. So let's use that productively and properly. And also we have channels. We have a WhatsApp channel that you're updated on things which are going on, not just videos, but other things as well. And we also have the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qāḍī, which is a Q&A. So you can ask the questions during the day. I then answer them in the Fiqh hour. And there's also one for sisters, a Markaz al-Ifta wal-Qāḍī. The details are on this YouTube channel. But if you search the Olive Foundation on Telegram, or if you search Mufti Amjad Mohammed on WhatsApp, the channels are there, inshallah. So join them. Anyway, we've done a little bit more than Fiqh hour. So till tomorrow, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana. And now, I was going to say, before I say my wa akhiru da'wana, is that now, obviously, the Ramadan, whoever has started for you, there's no point now debating about, whether the moon was seen or not seen. That debate you should have had coming up to these last 3-4 weeks. I'll allow you maybe one more day of debate, but you need to, move the community towards local with support from foreign and regional foreign until we can go completely on local. If we can do it within your generation, then alhamdulillah, that's a great achievement. Otherwise, these conversations and debates will carry on. I'll be long gone and buried, you'll be long gone and buried, and people will still be having the same arguments. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.